My name is Diana Parker. I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, I stood in a ballroom filled with 150 people, my father's colleagues, business partners, and family friends, and watched my mother lean into a microphone and say, "At least Diana found a husband, even if we don't know what he does for a living." The room laughed. My father smiled. My sister smirked. And my husband, the man they'd dismissed as a nobody for 4 years, slowly pushed back his chair and stood up. What happened next made my father's business partner drop her wine glass, made my mother go pale, and made my sister finally understand why I'd never once asked our parents for money. Before I tell you this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy it. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? It started 6 years ago, the night I met Marcus. I was 26, exhausted from a long day of parent-teacher conferences and desperate for caffeine. The coffee shop near my school was crowded, but there was one empty seat across from a man typing furiously on his laptop. "Mind if I sit here?" I asked. He looked up, dark eyes, warm smile. "Please." We didn't talk much that first day. He worked. I graded papers. But when I got up to leave, he said, "Same time tomorrow." I came back. So did he. For 2 months, we shared that table. He told me he worked in education. I told him I taught 3rd grade. He never asked about my family's money. I never asked about his. It was the first time someone saw me. Not my father's company, not my sister's shadow, just me. When Marcus finally asked me to dinner, I said yes before he finished the sentence. We dated for 2 years. Simple dates, farmers markets, movie nights. He cooked for me in his modest apartment. And I fell in love with the way he listened. Really listened. When I talked about my students, when he proposed, I didn't tell my parents for 3 weeks. I knew what they'd say. He works in education. My mother's voice dripped with disappointment. "What does that even mean?" "It means he helps kids learn," I said. "So, he's a teacher like you," she sighed. "Diana, I had hopes for you." Marcus never pushed me to explain more about what he did. Once I asked him why, he took my hand and said, "I don't want your family to like me for what I have. I want them to like me for who I am." I didn't understand then, but I learned early that in my family, your worth was measured in dollar signs. So, I stopped bringing people I loved into that equation. The signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every birthday dinner, the pattern repeated like a broken record. "Madison, tell everyone about the Henderson deal," my mother would say, beaming at my sister. $2 million. Can you believe it? Madison would flip her hair, launch into some story about client negotiations, and the whole table would lean in like she was announcing a cure for cancer. Then my mother would turn to me. "And Diana, you're still teaching?" She said, teaching the way someone might say unemployed. 3rd grade now, I'd say. I have this one student, Emma, who couldn't read 6 months ago. Last week, she finished her first chapter book, and that's nice, dear. My mother would already be looking at her phone. That was sign number 1. Sign number 2, hurt worse. Last spring, my students put on a play. They'd worked for months memorizing lines, painting sets, making costumes from cardboard and glitter. I invited my parents. "Dad, it's on the 15th, 3 o'clock. I'd really love for you to come." My father checked his calendar. "I have real meetings, Diana. Maybe next time." He'd visited Madison's office 12 times that year. I counted. The week before the play, Madison whispered to me at Sunday brunch, "You know, Dad's disappointed, right? You had the same opportunities one did." I wanted to scream that our opportunities weren't the same. She wanted the corner office. I wanted to matter to someone, but I just smiled and said nothing. Marcus was there beside me. He heard everything. That night he held me and said, "Your worth isn't determined by them." I wanted to believe him, but all those small humiliations, they were just the warm-up. The retirement party was where everything exploded. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. An email, not even a proper card. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Robert Parker's retirement after 40 years of excellence in real estate development." Madison got a hand-calligraphed invitation delivered by courier. I know because she posted it on Instagram. My mother called that evening. Diana, I need to discuss the seating arrangements. Okay. You and Marcus will be at table 14. I pulled up the venue layout on my laptop. Table 14 was in the back corner near the kitchen doors. Mom, that's the furthest table from the stage. Well, we have important guests. The Walshes are coming. The Hendersons, people your father actually does business with. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Fine. And Diana, wear something nice. There will be important people. She paused. Try not to talk too much about your little school. These people have real careers. She hung up before I could respond. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed staring at my phone. Marcus came in, saw my face. They seated us by the kitchen, didn't they? I nodded. Do you want me to come? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to protect him from them, but another part, a part I'd been silencing for years, was tired of facing them alone. Yes, I whispered. Please. Marcus sat beside me, took my hand. I've been quiet for 4 years because you asked me to, but if they hurt you again, I won't just sit there. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath, something I hadn't heard before. Marcus, what are you? He looked at me steadily. I think it's time. Time for what? I didn't ask. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the future. About the children Marcus and I talked about having someday. About what I'd teach them. Would I teach them to stay silent when someone humiliated them? To smile and nod while being dismissed? To believe their worth depended on a job title or bank account? No, absolutely not. So, why was I still teaching myself those lessons? I thought about the last family dinner. Madison had announced her promotion, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Dad's company. Everyone applauded. Champagne was poured. Then she leaned over to me and whispered loud enough for the whole table to hear. Diana married down. At least I'm dating someone with ambition. Marcus was sitting right there. He heard every word. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing because I'd asked him not to make waves. That night, after we got home, I found him standing at the window just staring out at the city lights. I'm sorry, I said. I should have. Don't apologize for them. He turned to me. But Diana, I need you to understand something. This isn't sustainable. He was right. The next morning, I checked my email and found something my mother had accidentally forwarded a message to Madison sent 3 days earlier. Make sure Diana sits at the back table. We don't want her husband making small talk with the Walshes. God knows what he'd say about his education work. I read it 3 times. Each time it hurt more. I realized then that silence wasn't peace. It was permission. Permission for them to keep hurting me, keep hurting us. Something had to change. And the retirement party, that was going to be the turning point one way or another. The grand ballroom of the Hartwell Hotel was everything my father loved. Excessive, expensive, and designed to impress. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a 12-piece orchestra playing soft jazz, 150 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits, all gathered to celebrate Robert Parker's 4 decades of excellence. Marcus and I arrived at 7. He wore a simple navy suit. I wore a black dress I'd bought on sale 3 years ago. At the entrance, my mother stood greeting guests like royalty receiving subjects. She wore emeralds. Actual emeralds. Diana. She air-kissed my cheek. You came? Of course I came. It's Dad's retirement. Her eyes flicked to Marcus. And you brought him my husband. Yes. She forced a smile. Table 14 in the back. We know. We made our way through the crowd. I felt the glances, the whispers, Parker's older daughter, the teacher, married to nobody special. Near the stage, I spotted Madison, red designer gown, diamond earrings, standing beside our father like she was the guest of honor. She saw me and waved, a little flutter of fingers that somehow felt condescending. Table 14, Marcus murmured. Convenient. It was worse than I'd expected. Not just near the kitchen, practically in it. Every time a server passed, we had to pull in our chairs. As we sat down, a woman at the next table turned around. Expensive suit, sharp eyes. I recognized her. Jennifer Walsh, one of my father's biggest business partners. She looked at Marcus, frowned slightly, tilted her head. "Have we met?" she asked him. Marcus smiled politely. "I don't think so." Jennifer kept staring. Then she pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, recognition. But before she could say anything, the lights dimmed. My father took the stage. Before my father could speak, Madison appeared at our table. She held a champagne flute like a weapon. "Diana, you actually came." "Why wouldn't I? Just surprised, that's all. These events aren't really your scene." Her eyes slid to Marcus. "Nice suit outlet." "No," he said calmly. "Just simple." "Simple, right?" She smiled. "Marcus, remind me. What do you do again?" "I work in education." "Education." She let the word hang there. "Like tutoring, SAT prep, something like that." "So, like Diana then. Birds of a feather." Madison laughed at her own joke. "Well, at least you have each other." I felt heat rising in my chest. My hands trembled under the table. "Madison," I said quietly. "Don't you have somewhere else to be?" "Relax, sis. I'm just making conversation." She sipped her champagne. "Dad's about to speak. Try not to look too bored. We have photographers." She sauntered away, hips swaying, clearly pleased with herself. Under the table, Marcus took my hand. His grip was firm, steady. "You okay?" he asked. "No. Do you want to leave?" I looked at my father on stage, at my mother, beaming from the front row, at Madison, positioning herself for the perfect photo op. "Not yet," I said. "I need to see this through." Marcus nodded slowly. She doesn't know what she's mocking. That's the saddest part. I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. The orchestra fell silent. The room settled. My father tapped the microphone. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight." 150 faces turned toward the stage, smiling expectantly, and I sat in the back near the kitchen, holding my husband's hand, telling myself that this time would be different. It wasn't. It was worse. My father had always been good at speeches, confident, commanding, the kind of voice that made people lean forward. 40 years, he began. 40 years of building something from nothing. 40 years of deals, negotiations, and yes, a few sleepless nights. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. But I didn't do it alone. He gestured toward the front table. My wife Helen, my rock, my partner in everything. My mother pressed a hand to her chest, eyes glistening on cue. And my daughter Madison, his voice swelled with pride. My legacy at the company. Senior Vice President at 28, the future of Parker Real Estate. Madison rose slightly from her seat, accepting the applause like she'd just won an Oscar. The photographers' cameras flashed. "Madison has exceeded every expectation," my father continued. "She has my drive, my instincts, and frankly, my ruthlessness." More laughter, more applause. I sat there waiting, hoping. "Of course, family is more than business," he said. "I'm blessed with 2 daughters." My heart lifted. Maybe this time my father's eyes found me across the ballroom. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. It was the smile he gave difficult clients. "And Diana, my eldest." A pause. Too long. She's still trying to figure out what to do with her life. Scattered laughter. Awkward. Uncomfortable. But we love her anyway. He said it like a punchline. I felt the blood drain from my face. 150 people were looking at me now. Some pitying, some amused, some just curious about the lesser daughter. Marcus's hand tightened around mine. When I looked at him, his expression was stone. My father had already moved on. "Now, let me tell you about our plans for the foundation." But he wasn't done with me. Not yet. While my father droned on about tax-deductible charitable contributions, Jennifer Walsh was staring at my husband, not casually, intently, like she was solving a puzzle. She kept glancing at her phone, then back at Marcus, scrolling, zooming, comparing. I tried to focus on my father's speech, but her attention was impossible to ignore. Finally, she leaned across the gap between our tables. "Excuse me," she whispered. "I'm sorry, but I have to ask. Have we really never met?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't believe so. You just look so familiar." She held up her phone, showing him something on the screen. Is this Jennifer? My father's voice cut through. Care to share with the class? She snapped her phone down, startled. Just checking emails, Robert. Please continue. My father chuckled. Always working. That's why I love you, Jen. The moment passed. Jennifer returned to facing the stage, but I saw her glance back at Marcus 2 more times, and I saw her expression, the barely concealed shock, the way her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She knew something, or thought she did. Marcus, I whispered. What was she looking at? Nothing important. She recognized you. He squeezed my hand. Let it go for now. For now? What did that mean? Up on stage, my father was wrapping up his speech. But enough about business. Let's talk about what really matters, family. He extended a hand toward my mother. She rose gracefully and joined him on stage. Helen, would you like to say a few words? My mother took the microphone with the practiced ease of a woman who'd been performing her entire life. Thank you, darling. She scanned the crowd and then her eyes locked onto me. I knew that look. It never ended well. 3 hours earlier, as we were getting ready for the party, Marcus had done something strange. He'd reached into his briefcase and pulled out a plain white envelope, thick, official-looking. He slid it into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. What's that? I'd asked. Insurance. Insurance for what? He'd looked at me then, really looked at me and said, for you. In case they go too far. I hadn't asked what was inside. Honestly, I didn't want to know. Part of me hoped we wouldn't need it, that this night would be different. But sitting here now watching my mother take the microphone with that predatory smile, I thought about that envelope. What kind of insurance did Marcus have? And what did he think might happen tonight that would require it? I want to say something about family, my mother announced. About the people who make everything worthwhile. Her gaze swept the room, landing briefly on Madison warmly, on various guests politely, on me with something that looked almost like contempt. Robert and I have been blessed, she continued. Truly blessed. Our youngest, Madison, has made us so proud, following in her father's footsteps, building an empire. Madison raised her glass. Cameras flashed again. And then there's Diana. My stomach clenched. Our eldest has taken a different path. My mother's smile was surgical. She teaches elementary school, 3rd grade, I think. Or is it 2nd now? 3rd, I said, though no one could hear me from table 14. But you know what? At least she found a husband. She paused for a fact. Even if we don't know what he does for a living. The room erupted in laughter, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart, my patience. Beside me, Marcus slowly reached into his jacket. The laughter rolled through the ballroom like a wave. Some people tried to hide it behind their hands. Others didn't bother. My father took the microphone back. From my mother, still chuckling. Now, Helen, be nice. But he was smiling, enjoying it. Diana has her own talents. He said, talents the way you'd say quirks about a difficult child. Some people are meant to lead, he continued, gesturing grandly. Others are meant to support. Diana has always been a supporter. I sat frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. This wasn't a speech. It was a public execution. We've tried to guide her, of course, offered her positions at the company, offered to pay for her MBA, but Diana chose, well, whatever it is she chose. Sympathetic murmurs from the crowd. Poor Robert, such a disappointing daughter. But that's family, right? You love them anyway, even when they don't meet expectations. He raised his glass to family, complicated as they may be. 150 glasses rose in response to family. And there I sat at the table by the kitchen while everyone toasted to my failure. Marcus's hand was no longer holding mine. When I looked over, his chair was empty. He was standing. Marcus, I whispered, what are you doing? He didn't answer. Just started walking, calm, measured, each step deliberate, toward the stage. Heads began to turn. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who is that? What's he doing? My father noticed. His smile faltered. Can I help you? Marcus stepped onto the stage. He looked out at the sea of faces, investors, partners, friends, all of them strangers to him. Then he leaned into the microphone. May I have a moment? The room went silent. My father's confusion hardened into annoyance. I'm sorry. Who are you? I'm Marcus, Diana's husband, the one you don't know anything about. A few nervous laughs from the crowd. My mother stepped forward, reaching for the microphone. This really isn't the time. I think it's exactly the time. Marcus's voice was quiet, but it carried. Every word crisp, every syllable controlled. My father forced a smile for the audience. Marcus, is it? Why don't we discuss this later in private? No. The word landed like a stone. For 4 years, Marcus continued, I've sat at the back of your holiday dinners. I've listened to your wife mock my career. I've watched you dismiss your daughter like she's somehow less than. And I've stayed quiet because Diana asked me to. He looked at me across the ballroom. His eyes were soft, sad. But I won't stay quiet anymore. My mother laughed, a brittle, uncomfortable sound. This is ridiculous. Helen, get security. No need. Marcus held up a hand. I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to introduce myself properly since your family never gave me the chance. Madison pushed through the crowd, champagne sloshing. This is insane. Who does this guy think he is? Excellent question, Marcus said. Thank you for asking. He reached into his jacket pocket. My heart stopped the envelope, but he didn't pull it out. Not yet. Instead, he straightened his tie and faced the audience. My name is Marcus Smith Parker. Jennifer Walsh made a sound, a gasp, maybe. Her hand flew to her mouth. And I believe, Marcus said calmly, some of you may have heard of my company. The room seemed to hold its breath. Even my father looked uncertain now. What company? He asked. Marcus smiled. Before Marcus could answer, Madison grabbed the microphone. Okay, enough of this. She positioned herself between Marcus and the audience. Diana, come get your husband. He's embarrassing himself. I'm not finished, Marcus said. Yes, you are. Madison's voice dripped with condescension. Look, I get it. You feel defensive because we pointed out the obvious, but let's be real here. She turned to the crowd, playing to them now. Diana married a guy who probably makes less than my assistant. And that's fine. Really, not everyone can aim high. Someone actually laughed. A loud braying laugh from the back of the room. Maybe he's a tutor. Maybe he grades papers. Whatever working in education means, Madison made air quotes. The point is, this is Dad's night, not your night. So, please sit down, go back to your little corner, and let the adults finish celebrating. She thrust the microphone at Marcus, expecting him to take it and slink away. He didn't. Instead, he took the microphone and he smiled. Not a smug smile, not a vengeful one. Just calm. You're right, he said. This isn't my night, but it became my night when your family publicly humiliated my wife in front of 150 people. Madison rolled her eyes. Oh my God, so dramatic. I work in education, Marcus continued, ignoring her. You're right about that, but I don't grade papers. I don't tutor. He paused. Let the silence build. I build educational platforms, technology that helps millions of children learn. Jennifer Walsh was nodding now, her face pale. I knew it, she whispered. I knew I recognized him. Madison's smirk flickered. What are you talking about? My company, Marcus said, is called EduSpark. Someone in the crowd gasped, and everything changed. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. I know you're probably screaming at your screen right now. I was screaming inside, too. If you're as invested in this story as I was living it, hit that like button. It really helps. And I have a question for you. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by your own family? Tell me in the comments because what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. Now, back to that ballroom. The name EduSpark moved through the crowd like electricity. I saw it happen in real time. First confusion, then recognition, then shock. A man at table 3 pulled out his phone, typed frantically, and showed his wife. Her eyes went wide. A woman near the stage put her hand over her heart. Jennifer Walsh was already on her feet. Robert, she said loudly. Do you have any idea who this is? My father looked lost. Genuinely lost. I what? EduSpark. Jennifer repeated. The educational technology company. They were just valued at $200 million. It was on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago. The murmurs intensified. 200 million. Forbes cover story. Madison's face had gone from smug to confused to something approaching horror. That's not possible. I assure you, Marcus said calmly. It's very possible. My mother clutched my father's arm. Robert, did you know about this? Of course I didn't know. His composure was cracking. Diana never told us. You never asked. Marcus's voice cut through. In 4 years, not once did you ask me a single real question about my work, about my life, about anything. He stepped forward. The spotlight followed him. You assumed I was nobody because I didn't brag, because I didn't drop names or flash money, because I sat quietly at your holiday dinners and didn't try to impress you. The room was utterly silent now. No one moved. No one breathed. Last year, Forbes named me one of their 30 under 30 in education. I've been interviewed by CNN, MSNBC, and the Wall Street Journal. I've had lunch with senators and shaken hands with 2 presidents. He looked directly at Madison. I don't make less than your assistant, but if I did, that still wouldn't justify what you said about my wife. Jennifer Walsh pushed her way to the front. I knew I recognized you. You were on the cover of TechCrunch last summer, the article about democratizing education. Marcus nodded. That's right. I've been trying to get a meeting with your company for 6 months. She turned to my father, accusation in her voice. Robert, you've been talking about getting into EdTech. The opportunity was literally at your dinner table. My father's face was a mask of barely controlled panic. I didn't. You never bothered to find out. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope. But that's not why I'm up here. He opened it, removed a document. Thick official. This is a contract, he said. A $5 million grant to fund STEM programs in underprivileged schools across Massachusetts. $5 million. The number rippled through the crowd. The first recipient. Marcus looked at me. His eyes were shining. Lincoln Elementary, Diana's school. I felt tears streaming down my face. Not because of the money, not because of the status, because for the first time in my life, someone was standing in front of my family and saying, Diana matters. Your daughter, Marcus continued, each children who have nothing. She shows up every single day for kids that society has forgotten. She buys supplies with her own money. She stays late to help struggling readers. She changes lives. His voice cracked slightly. And you call her a disappointment? You call her a supporter? He shook his head. Diana is the reason I built my company because I saw what teachers like her do, and I wanted to give them the tools they deserve. He looked at my parents, my father gray-faced, my mother clutching her pearls. I work in education. I just happen to own the company. Marcus held up the contract so everyone could see the EduSpark logo at the top, his signature at the bottom, the school's name highlighted in yellow. This isn't charity, he said. This is an investment because what Diana does matters. What every teacher does matters. He stepped away from the microphone and walked toward me. The crowd parted silently like the Red Sea. I stood up. My legs were shaking. I didn't know if I could stay upright. When Marcus reached me, he took both my hands. I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner, he said quietly. I kept hoping they'd see you. The real you, the way I see you, Marcus. I couldn't find words. I've never been prouder to be your husband. Behind us, I heard my mother's voice trembling. Diana, honey, why didn't you tell us? And there it was, the question that held everything that was wrong with my family. I turned to face her. My father stood frozen beside her. Madison had backed away from the stage entirely, trying to disappear into the crowd. Would it have mattered? I asked. Of course it would have. Really? I felt something hardening inside me. Not anger, clarity. You've been dismissing me for 32 years. You've made me feel worthless at every opportunity. You just called my husband a nobody in front of everyone you know. I gestured at the room. If Marcus were actually broke, if he really were a tutor making minimum wage, would that make your behavior okay? My mother opened her mouth, closed it. That's what I thought. Marcus squeezed my hand, supporting me, but not speaking for me. This was my moment. My voice, and I finally knew what I wanted to say. My father stepped forward, business instincts overriding his shock. Marcus, I had no idea. We should talk. Perhaps a partnership. No. The word hung in the air. Simple, final. But this is exactly the kind of opportunity. The opportunity was 4 years ago. Marcus's voice was calm but immovable. When you could have treated your daughter with respect. When you could have asked me a single real question instead of assuming I was beneath you. My father sputtered. We didn't assume. You sat us by the kitchen. That was a seating arrangement issue. You forwarded an email telling Madison to keep us away from your important guests. My mother went pale. She'd forgotten about that. How did you? She started. Diana showed me the one you accidentally sent her. I watched my parents exchange a look. For the first time, they had no spin, no excuse, just the raw truth of what they'd done. We can start over, my mother said desperately. Family is family. Is it? I stepped forward. Because you've spent my entire life making me feel like I'm not really part of this family, like I'm an embarrassment, a charity case. Diana, that's not you said you didn't know what my husband does for a living, but the truth is you never asked, not once, about him, about me, about what we're building together. Madison tried to interject from somewhere in the crowd. This is so unfair. How are we supposed to know? You weren't supposed to know, Marcus said. You were supposed to be decent. That shouldn't require a Forbes article. The crowd was motionless, watching, witnessing. My father looked around at his guests, his partners, his legacy, all of them staring. Perhaps, he said tightly, we should continue this privately. No, I said, I'm done doing things privately. I walked toward the stage. Marcus walked with me, his hand on the small of my back, supporting, not leading. When I reached the microphone, I looked out at the crowd. All these people I'd been taught to impress, to perform for, to never disappoint. And I realized I was done performing. I'm Diana Parker, I said. The disappointing daughter. A nervous ripple of laughter. For 32 years, I've tried to earn my parents' approval. I chose a career I love, and they called it a waste. I married a man I love, and they called him a nobody. I showed up to every holiday, every birthday, every event, and they sat me by the kitchen. My voice was steady, stronger than I'd expected. Tonight, you found out my husband is successful by your definition of success. Wealthy, famous, influential. I looked at my parents. But here's the thing, that shouldn't change anything. The way you treated me was wrong before you knew about Marcus Company. And the fact that you're only interested now that there's money and connections involved, proves exactly what I always suspected. My mother had tears in her eyes. Real ones, performed ones. I couldn't tell anymore. Diana, please. I'm not finished. She fell silent. I have a job that matters. A husband who loves me. A life I built without your approval. I took a breath. And from now on, respect is the minimum requirement. Not optional, not conditional on who my husband is, just basic respect. I looked at Madison, at my mother, at my father. If you can give me that, we can try again. If you can't, I took Marcus's hand. Then this is goodbye. We turned and we walked out. 150 people watched us go. We didn't speak until we were in the car. Marcus drove. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, watching the city lights blur through my tears. Are you okay? He finally asked. I don't know. I wiped my face. I feel empty, like I've been holding something heavy for years, and I finally put it down. That's not empty. That's light. I laughed. A wet, broken sound. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since we left. I finally looked at it. 23 missed calls. 14 from my mother, 6 from my father, 3 from Madison. Voicemails were piling up. I played my mother's first message. Honey, please come back. This was all a misunderstanding. We need to talk. Misunderstanding. Like she'd accidentally mispronounced my name. My father's voicemail was shorter. Marcus seems like a great guy. Let's have dinner. I have some ideas about I deleted it before he could finish pitching a business deal. Madison's text was the most revealing. I read it out loud to Marcus. I can't believe you hid this from us. That's so selfish. He shook his head slowly. Selfish. She still thinks she's the victim. Of course she does. I turned my phone off, let the silence settle around us. Do you regret it? I asked, staying quiet for so long. Sometimes he reached over, took my hand. But I didn't do it for them. I did it for you because you asked me to. I know. And tonight, I thought about it, about my mother's face, my father's panic, Madison's horror. Tonight, I said, I finally said what I needed to say. Are you glad? I watched the road ahead. Dark, uncertain. Not yet, I admitted. But I think I will be. The fallout started the next morning. Jennifer Walsh called Marcus at 8 a.m. I listened from the kitchen while making coffee. I want to apologize for last night, she said. I had no idea Robert's family would that was appalling. It wasn't your fault, Marcus said. Still, I've been trying to get a meeting with Etta Spark for 6 months. I kept going through Robert thinking he might have connections. Turns out the connection was at his daughter's table. She laughed, but there was an edge to it. Anyway, I'd love to discuss partnership opportunities when you're ready. After she hung up, Marcus looked at me. Jennifer was my father's biggest potential investor. Was she called him this morning, withdrew her interest in his development project. I should have felt satisfied. I didn't, but I didn't feel guilty either. Over the next week, the story spread through Boston's business community like wildfire. Robert Parker's family publicly humiliated a $200 million CEO at his own retirement party. Not just any CEO, the Forbes 30 Under 30 CEO who'd been on CNN. The optics were devastating. 2 deals my father had been cultivating for months fell through. The partners cited concerns about judgment and reputational alignment. In business, I learned reputation is currency. That night, my father's account was overdrawn. Madison was quietly removed from the Henderson project. Too much awkwardness, apparently. She blamed me, of course. Texted me a long rant about how I destroyed everything. I didn't respond. The most surprising call came from my father's company's PR team. They wanted to know if Marcus would consider a joint statement, something about healing family rifts and moving forward together. Marcus declined. There's nothing to spin, he told them. The truth is the truth. 1 week after the party, Uncle George called. George was my father's older brother, the one who'd left Parker Real Estate 30 years ago to become a high school principal. The one my father called the family disappointment before I inherited the title. Diana, his voice was warm, familiar. I heard about the retirement party. I'm sure you did. I've been telling Robert for years he was wrong about you. I felt something loosen in my chest. You have? Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every time he made some comment about your little teaching job. Uncle George sighed. He never listened. Your father only hears what he wants to hear. I thought about all those family dinners, the ones where Uncle George sat in the corner quiet while my father held court. Why didn't you ever say anything to me? I asked. Because I didn't want to interfere. And, honestly, I wasn't sure if you'd believe me. He paused. But what Marcus did, standing up for you like that, it took guts. It did. And what you did, Diana, standing up for yourself at the end, that took even more. I started crying then. Not sad tears, something else. Release. I'm proud of you, kid, Uncle George said. I always have been. I just wish I'd said it more. Thank you. I managed. And Diana, family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you. His voice cracked slightly. Marcus showed up and so did you. For yourself. After we hung up, Marcus found me on the couch still crying. Good tears, he asked. Good tears. He sat beside me, put his arm around my shoulders. Not everyone in your family gave up on you, he said. I know. I leaned into him. I'm finally starting to see that. Quick check-in. Are you team Diana should forgive her parents or team they need to earn it? I genuinely want to know. Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've made it this far, you're clearly invested in this story. So, hit subscribe if you haven't already. The ending might surprise you. Now, let me tell you what happened. 3 weeks later, when I finally agreed to see my parents again, I chose a coffee shop, neutral ground, public enough that they'd have to behave. My parents were already there when I arrived. They looked older somehow, smaller. My father was wearing a polo shirt instead of his usual suit. My mother's jewelry was conspicuously absent. I sat across from them. Marcus had offered to come. I told him no. This was something I needed to do alone. Thank you for meeting us, my father said. His voice was stiff, rehearsed. Thank you for respecting my boundaries about the location. An awkward pause. Diana, my mother started. We want to start over. Starting over requires acknowledging what went wrong. Another pause. They exchanged glances. We were hard on you, my father admitted, because we wanted more for you. No. I kept my voice level. You were hard on me because I didn't fit your definition of success. There's a difference. My mother's eyes glistened. We just wanted you to have security, a stable future. I have security. I have stability. Just not the kind you respect. We do respect, Mom. I held up my hand. You called my husband a nobody in front of 150 people. You seated us by the kitchen. You forwarded emails about keeping us away from your important guests. She had nothing to say to that. I'm not looking for apologies, I continued. Words are easy. I'm looking for change. What kind of change? My father asked. Basic respect, real questions, actual interest in my life, not just when it benefits you. I looked at both of them. I'll give you a chance, but it's conditional. Respect first. Always. My mother nodded. My father cleared his throat. We can do that, he said. We'll see. That night, Marcus and I sat on our balcony. The city sparkled below us, a bottle of wine between us, half empty. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it. Really thought like I'm finally starting over. Not with them, with myself. He nodded. Any regrets? Only that I waited so long. I leaned against him, feeling his warmth, his steadiness. You know what's strange? I said. All those years I thought I needed their approval to be happy, to feel like I mattered. And now I realize I always mattered. I just needed to believe it myself. Marcus kissed the top of my head. You changed thousands of children's lives. You showed up every single day for kids nobody else cared about. That matters. I know. And for the first time, I actually believed it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. The sounds of the city drifted up. Distant traffic, someone laughing, a dog barking. What happens next? Marcus asked. I smiled. We keep building the school program, our life, whatever comes together. Always together. I thought about my students, about Emma, who could finally read, about the STEM program that would change everything, about the life I'd built with my own hands, my own heart. I thought about my parents. Maybe they'd change, maybe they wouldn't. But either way, I was done waiting for their validation. The people who love you don't make you prove your worth. They celebrate it. Marcus had taught me that. And now I was teaching it to myself. You know what? I said, what? I smiled at him. Really smiled. I think I'm going to be okay. And for the first time in 32 years, I meant it. And that's my story. Thank you for being here until the very end. If this resonated with you, if you've ever felt unseen by the people who were supposed to see you most, I hope you know your worth isn't up for debate. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and check out another story in the description below. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in my place? See you in the next.